Yay, hi everybody, and welcome back to my YouTube channel, Turning Readers into Writers with Emma Desi. And today I have another fabulous interview with you with a near debut author, and we're going to be learning so much more about Althea Damgaard. Althea has always loved writing stories and reading since she was a kid. Now disabled with multiple sclerosis, she spends most of her time writing, reading, and improving her craft. Her go-to fiction is fantasy and science fiction, but she will read any story that promises some adventure and the need to overcome. She is a certified writing coach with Hope Writers, and when not doing that, she is spending time with her husband, playing with her cats, or playing games. So welcome, Althea. Lovely to see you today.
Hi, Emma. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome. Now, I realized I probably should have checked before we started chatting. Do you pronounce your first name Althea or Althea?
I always joke and say, I'll see you later, and that's how so then
Althea.
you get Althea right. Yeah.
I love it. It's such a pretty name. Is it Greek or
And it actually has Greek origins, but I laughed that my mother came up with it because of an older lady on a soap opera when I was a kid.
well, it's however it came about, it's very pretty. I do think it's pretty. So let's start off, as I always do, by asking you about your own journey to writing. What I've discovered over the years is it's never, or very rarely, a straight line. We often take a circuitous route. So I'd love to hear more about yours.
Oh yeah, it can be like a beeline too, and you go around the same mountain a few times. But I've always liked writing stories. So, I mean, even as a kid, I mean, I did like a little picture thing. I remember the first thing I wrote, which it'd be funny if I could actually find it. I don't think it still exists, but I did a little story of a mother cat with some kittens finding a bag of frog legs, and then real frogs jumped out of it. And I was drawing the little pictures, typical 7-year old, creativity running there. So, and then back in the cupboards behind me, I have like journals and notebooks of all the stuff I wrote as a teenager and printouts of different things. So, you know, I've always been writing, but I knew I needed to learn how to write. So, silly me, I even put myself through grammar class in high school, and I hated English. I was terrible at English. I was the definitely math, science. I've been an engineer more than I've been a writer.
Okay.
So, yeah, so I had to do a lot of things, and I even did like a science fiction email training thing, which that might be lost in the weeds too at my mom's house if it still exists. Um, then then I had like a break where I was writing stories, but I wasn't really getting any training for a while until like around 2005 or whatever. I joined the Christian Writers Guild and I did their apprentice class, and that was still like by mail, but at least by email, but you still got a physical packet of things to do. And I was going to do their journeyman level, but I didn't really have the money. And then because of the cost of the way they ran it, it just wasn't conducive. And then the way the internet changed things, so it got closed down. But then I followed Jerry Jenkins over to his guild and was a member for a while, and got to beta test his year novel blueprint. And he just did some updates to it recently. So he's always working on the course to try to make it better and improve it. But that's where I kind of really got deeper into knowing how to write, do my novel writing better. But then I still knew I needed to improve. And then I kept writing stuff. I was even writing things for an amateur gaming magazine with fan fiction on games or how to on games, because like I said, my engineering side, I'm pretty nerdy. I probably have more documents over at a manufacturing plant I used to work at for the FDA to look through at the time when they were still like in the process to say, no, we didn't adulterate anything when we made it over here. Um, so I have that all that technical writing side too. So
Yeah.
um, it kind of comes up with an interesting mix when I'm trying to write. And but I found that definitely staying in a network of writer groups and having a critique group and accountability and everything, you can keep learning stuff in conferences. You get lots of classes and interaction of how to be with people. So
Yeah.
that's my whole path into the fun of writing, and just keep, making sure once I took it seriously, officially it was 2021 after writing a fun little dystopian that I put up on a fiction blog. It was more of my like, how am I getting out of 2020, and all the stuff going on.
Mm.
Um, and so I kind of put it into a little like fun dystopian novel instead and serialized it on a blog. So
Mhm. Yeah.
um,
So you've done quite a lot, and
yeah.
that starting with the Christian Writers Guild and then moving into the Jerry Jenkins space. So his year, given that it was a year-long thing, I mean, being part of that community for a year, was that did that help you kind of build, I want to say routine or build consistency or build your writing muscle over the course of doing that class?
Yeah, I can't remember how fast with the testing. It probably we did like 6 to 7, 6 or 7 months of really going through the class. I don't know, and it's like, yeah, he kind of sets it at your own pace, so you can come back to things and stuff too. So it's not, but it just helped me kind of figure out what I knew and what I didn't know about writing, because sometimes you have a piece that will be, if you really like writing, there'll be like a natural piece. There'll be pieces that you actually do well. It's just because you naturally, you know, have it. Like, I get told by everybody that my dialogue is like my strong point, you know, and but I even had someone say they like my exposition side too, where I kind of like narration and stuff. But you know, I I know how to take dialogues, and it's just something natural, taking the conversation to make the story flow. It was
Mhm.
just something I naturally had, but then I had to learn how to put all the other stuff in there, and that like just blather forever. Yeah,
I think
because
that's a really
yeah.
good point that you make, and I wish more writers would sort of hear that we all have something, we all have strengths, and it's great to kind of see them and play to them. But of course, we all have things that we need to work on. But writers need to know it's not all bad. Not everything that they put down on paper is dreadful. There are bits that are really good, and there are bits that just need a bit more work and a bit more help with. So I think that's a good point to make. Um, I've worked with quite a few technical writers who have then made that transition to fiction writing. So there's definitely a connection there between the words, whether they be technical and sort of non-fiction based, if you like, and making that switch over. And I think the technical writers I've worked with, what they're marvelous at is always getting the work done. So their pages are always done, they are clear and concise. And I wonder if that comes from the training that you get as you're doing those about being precise, getting things done to a schedule, making sure that this project is moving along smoothly. I don't know if that I've just kind of made that up or if there's any
Well,
elements.
it does roll over because, like, I'm also an ex-project manager as being well as an engineer. So, and maybe I have a little level of OCD of how things have to go. But I definitely a full like plotter for my stories. I don't have to spend like out. I like doing an outline of like where the main beats of the story should kind of come, and then I'll kind of discover how the characters want to move things. So like this book 3 of the series, I had to change some of the ending because the characters are kind of like, well, we really probably should do this. And I'm
Mhm.
like, and then I ran with it and I kind of liked it, so I could go back and retweak how, and I still have to do fix the ending because my beta readers are like, you kind of cut it off too much. You got the plot this close, but the character stuff isn't. So,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, no, it's just an interesting observation. It's like a lot of lawyers go into writing as well, and I think there's clearly a words connection there. But you write speculative fiction, and I know from your website that you write it with a very the strong Christian worldview, and that that's important to you. And I found that interesting, and I wondered what, because there'll be lots of Christians who don't choose to make that a part of the thing that they're writing, but I wondered what made you kind of make that conscious decision to make that a part of your writing style.
Um, well, of course, I became a Christian in my 30s, so I have a lot of writing that isn't based on it. But then I even have a piece where I wrote that I started just before I became a Christian. After it, you can kind of see the differences. So that's kind of like a fun piece that may never see the light of day, or the idea might get shifted into something that will actually work. But it's definitely personal to me because it shows the transition of my life. Because a lot of the writing we write is going to come from our worldview and what we believe. Because you know we're the reader's going to know if you're coming from a place of something you believe or something you don't, even in high fantasy or a far out space odyssey somewhere. There's still that underlying truth and a relatable theme that will keep that the reader, because you got to be relatable. If it's not relatable, it's people are going to read it and not feel like they can find themselves in the story process. So.
Oh yeah, no, I thought it was just interesting to ask you that, and I know that a lot of our Christian listeners will kind of feel reassured that, oh,
Well, Tolkien was also one of my first fantasy reads. So, and then, you know, I know C.S. Lewis, but the funny thing is I didn't read Narnia until like I was in my 30s. So that's kind of funny. I had to go read it because everybody's like, okay. So I'm like, okay, what did I miss growing up?
so it's more kind of about the world, the characters' worldview, and how they move through your speculative fiction worlds. It's kind of bringing those ideals in and the sort of Bible teachings in through fiction and story.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And trying, as one of my beta readers and friends tries to tell me, we figure out how to make it so it doesn't feel too preachy in the process,
Hmm.
because you still have to have the conversation. The characters will have the conversations of, you know, and in my stories, I just have it as light and dark, but it's very modeled after like the the Christian church view of it. So it has that feel. So I've had a 1-star review that said that they didn't like reading books for religion, but they read 15% of it, and it's labeled as Christian fantasy. So I found that a little amusing. I'm like, okay, so you read about 45 pages of something already labeled as religious fantasy. So I'm like, okay, good.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So you
yeah,
know what you're getting yourself in for. But you know,
yeah,
I always say the good thing about getting your first 1-star review means that you know your book is being read by people who are not your friends and family, that it's actually out there in the world. And so I think that's a good.
yeah. I know that was kind of. I had actually had to kind of laugh because it's on Goodreads and the slit says Christian. I'm going,
Who
okay,
knows? Who knows why people do
hey,
this?
who knows? But I hope you had fun reading 45 pages. That's
Yes, I recently read a blog post of yours called Waiting, and it really resonated with me because I felt it tied in really nicely with my 4 pillars of author success. One of which is, well, actually, the first one, which is acceptance, kind of accepting where you are in the writing landscape. We often always want to be further ahead than where we're at, but there needs to be a level of, okay, this is where I'm at, and I just keep plodding along. I keep doing the work, keep doing the writing, and foot by step by step I'll move along. So your blog post on waiting sort of really spoke to me in that way, and I wondered, what, thinking about your fiction, what does waiting mean for you at the moment?
um. I think the biggest thing is just knowing that, like, in some ways I feel like I've done things backwards because they always say to have a platform. So because I mean, if you don't have a platform, then who you know finding people to read your book is harder. So like I have this series, I'm gonna have like the third book coming out, and it's like I have a tiny little platform, but I do have, you know a few fans that are like, when's the next book coming out? So, but like waiting, you had to keep still doing what you're doing while you're waiting for that next thing. So like, it'd be really cool if things, expanded out more so that, I knew how to get my fans in. So I know I have a fiction blog as well, and that besides the one that you read Waiting on. So I have like two of them over on Substack. And it's just slowly, it's just like a slow growth to just keep building stuff. And you know the series has been like my main thing that I've been doing, and I'm like, I like to see it take off more. That's where my dream is, so I'm kind of waiting for that. But I also know part of the reason why it hasn't like you know run off there is because I haven't been like coordinated with like thousands of people. I at least have hundreds of people and at least tens of people of buying things. So I can say even with like being having a very small footprint still, I've still managed to sell around 100 books as just doing it myself.
Yeah.
And my marketing help, I had some help with Amazon ads, and none of those ads have actually sold a book, but they've gotten impressions that kind of led over there, but none of the clicks actually went to a sale yet in like the couple of months that it's been sitting there as a test.
Yeah.
So
So there's a lot
it's
of waiting there. So it's not so, yeah, so it's not so much about the writing, which it sounds like you're doing great guns at, and that's going very well. It's that other side, it's that marketing side of it and finding the
and
readers.
feeling like if you feeling like you reach the point of like, I actually really am an author. So you still get that imposter syndrome because you're like, well, I have, two books out there and a third one coming out, and I've only sold about 100 books. I'm like, it's like, did I really do the right thing? I'm like, well, I can't change it now. So I know I keep learning things of what I can do to kind of share and expand. And, like the blog I called that you found waiting on is called An Abundant Life, which is like my Christian worldview based on, how I see life and how my life's impacted by my worldview, and just try and inspire people to think about where they're at. And yeah, so that's, even been a slow burn up, tick of having followers
Mm.
and everything. So it all takes a little time, and you just gotta be consistent with your efforts.
Yeah,
And
100%. I could not agree with you more. We always want that big bestseller. It's going to happen straight away. We're going to write this book. That's it. It's going to catapult us into the stars. But the reality for the vast majority of us is slow and steady wins the race. You just keep going.
yeah, and even that first draft, I don't care how many books you've written, that first draft is going to need some massaging because, like, it's going to have ugly parts, just like my beta readers. Like, I did as best as I could, and then I got some content editing, and my beta readers kind of giving me feedback. And I'm like, I have a few scenes to add to this third book because to pull everything in right, because you're too close to your own work. So
Mhm.
you have stuff in your head and you think you might have made it come out in the book. And then the readers are like, uh, what did, yeah. And then you're like, and then you're like, oh, so I didn't really explain that very well, did I?
Yeah.
Or I skipped finishing that off, or, or I went too far with this, or not far enough with that. It's, I, have beta readers at different levels that some will kind of, they seem to skim more, but they'll still let me know if how they feel about certain things, and give me notes. And then there's others that are like the deep diving, I really want to know this character. They'll give you like little comments of like what really excited them, what they really liked, plus like, oh, this is like you. It's like, what did you think you were doing there? Yeah, so it's fun because I'm in that process now of reading. So, it's fun trying to see what the readers are thinking and some do better at letting you know than others, but it's fun. And I'm like, I definitely have to change some things, yeah, which
So it
is
sounds
cool.
like you've got a really good relationship with your beta readers. Are they the same readers that have read books one and two?
Yes.
Yeah.
Some
And
of, some
so,
of, yeah, some of them are newer to being a beta reader for me, but they have read the books
right,
before they come
okay.
in.
So that's
Yeah.
great. And
So,
so it seems that different people then come to you with different things. Some people are able to maybe look at the bigger picture, the more structural side, perhaps, and then others more of
yeah.
those line critiques with the looking at the nuance and the more detailed elements of it.
Yeah, it's fun because your beta readers, you'll find all different ones, and some will read fast, some will read slow. Yeah.
Hmm. And so how did you find your beta readers? Because I think that'll be a real interest to people who are listening today.
I pretty much, well, that's goes back to that whole networking thing of being with like other writers and then just trying to get yourself out there with a platform to say, hey, I'm writing stuff, and just share things and find a way to pull the readers in, which I definitely have to work at better. But yeah, it's always a progress. But I'll go. So some of my readers are actually from my writing groups, but they're also readers of what I write.
Mhm.
And, so it's a combo of writers and readers based on just having your platform out there and just networking and talking about your writing, and that draw people in. And if they're interested, I put like a little application to kind of see if they've read the other books, because now I'm in the third book of a series. So kind of ask that question, because I did get a couple of people, one I knew and one I didn't know, who hadn't beta read the other ones. So they were doing their first beta read with me. And then um, but it's basically networking and having your platform out there and sharing, and you know
And so by now, book three, how many beta readers have you got sort of on your books at the moment?
well, I like to keep it a little smaller, and of course my platform's smaller, so I don't get a whole lot anyway. I know some people who get a lot of beta readers, but I find that having, you know a smaller group and not go above 10,
Mhm.
because you still will get different views. Like I officially have 6 on this one that are really, you know, sticking to it. Though one will have to like look at version 2. She agreed to look at version 2. There's a few of them that did that after that I'm starting to put out,
Mhm.
um, just so
That's
they can look at it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good number of people that you've got. I think that's a really big number of beta readers you've got. I know some people go for hundreds, but uh,
Oh, that would
that's just
drive
the
me nuts
marketing.
trying to
Yeah.
hone in on everything.
So
Yeah.
when you've got all these people who are responding to your manuscript and they're feeding back to you, how easy is it or how hard is it for you to discern which feedback you're going to take on board and use and which you're going to sit to the side?
Well, I found one way I did different. Like the first book, I kind of, it was like in Google Docs. So I was still learning my way of how to share things, and that's kind of clunky. But
Mhm.
then I found this organization or site called Story Origin, where authors can sign up, and you can even make a landing page. Which I had a landing page until I actually made my website just recently, and that's still over there. But they have a way for you to put up review books and beta books, and I really like how they have a setup for beta reading, and it allows the beta reader to come in and they're not distracted by other comments or being able to see other comments, or and it's easy to get into. They can highlight, make comments, and then they can do a bigger section comment at the end. You could
Mhm.
also have the questions are right there of what you're looking for from them to help direct them.
So
And
that's
then
interesting
and
to
I can see
yeah.
all of their comments. So I can go through a section, like I just went through section 1. I can see all of their comments.
Mhm.
So then I can kind of look at what it is and then look at what they're saying and see whether I agree with it. or how many of them are actually saying fix this. It's like if the majority are kind of like saying it needs to be fixed, well, I better fix it. But there in some cases you do get contradictions. There was one element of like section 1, which is like the first 6 chapters of the book, where someone felt differently about the one not so nice character that I have in there for part of the conflict, because they thought that maybe her stuff was resolved in book 2 with how she was sent home, but um it was kind of left hanging in a lot of people's opinions. So it's gonna the majority were saying that they liked the way I had it in there.
Okay, so then it's up to you to decide what you're going to
Yeah,
hold on to and what you're not going to hold on to. And you raised a good point there earlier on when you were saying that within story origin you can specify the questions that you have, what it is that you want people to look at rather than just give them a open document and no guidance. So what kind of
yeah.
things do you ask of your beta readers?
So even with like the Google Docs, I had to have another document that I put the stuff in so that it wasn't all in one place. They still had a guidance document, so it's always good to have a guidance document somehow. But I usually ask them, it's like I tell them I want to know the good, the bad, and the ugly. So like, let me know what you really liked, what's bad that just needs tweaking, and what just just made you want to throw the book across the room. Like, so because I do have a friend who, if she gets upset enough for the book, she'll throw it across the room. She's one of those really deep dive people, so that's kind of fun. Um, and it's fun seeing her comments because she's actually beta reading this one, so I get laughing because I can picture her. But the questions are like, do the characters feel like you getting deep enough into them, or they just feel flat? Is something feel off? Like, did the character do something you didn't, you know, that didn't seem right? Or so that's how like you kind of get them to let you know, that good, bad, and ugly by with those different directions of, could they follow the plot? Did they get confused? Yeah.
That's
So
really good. I think that listeners will find that really useful if they're getting to that point where they're looking for readers to feed back to them. And so giving the beta reader some guidance on what to do will just make the whole process much easier. Yeah, and much more less intimidating for the beta reader, actually. It'll make it easier for them to know what it is you want. So we've been hearing about your books and the beta reading and things that are working and good dialogue and the things that are working. So why not tell us about, particularly book 1 in your light series? I know it's a trilogy, but why don't you tell us about the book and who might enjoy it?
well, let's see. Book 1 is Champions of Flight. I aimed it at like a younger version of myself who's probably like coming to age to being like, new adult age, because it's really confusing coming out of high school, going into and trying to figure out how to overcome in life. So um the one main character, Rhonda, some people pronounce it Rwanda, because the way I've spelt it. I don't care which way you pronounce it, it's kind of fun. um and but it's, both characters, and then for Sat, he's a little older, but they both have things to overcome and then learn about, the main theme is light versus dark, and learning how to overcome and understand and go with the faith of what you believe in. Because I don't care if you're not religious or religious, you believe in something, so you have faith in that thing that you believe because you'll act on what you believe. So there's transitions of them learning things to know what's different in life, and then trying to decide what they have to do, or they know better but they have to figure out how to learn how to overcome. So I love overcoming stories. So you know
That
it's
sounds
definitely got
amazing. Yay.
yeah, it's definitely got a Christian theme to it. So it's like, and there's supernatural elements of, the demons and the angels will show up. Hellhounds show up because that's the fantasy side of things. So it's
Mhm.
kind of like being in the medieval world with, it could even be on Earth with like the supernatural breaking through more.
Okay.
Um, and a lot of the story does happen in like a cathedral of light, which gives it more of that religious feel as well. So, but I had fun with my beta readers on the first one with that because we were, we actually went through two serious beta reads, you know, um, with like a bit of time in between because we're trying to figure out how to make it feel like the world of Carnum and the country of Kingdom of Foria Heights and how the religion was there. So, that's how I came up with like love and truth mean lighted truth. And so I kind of made up an older language and turned it, and so he's kind of more like what would be like the Jesus in the religion,
So tell
and
you what,
then
Althea, tell me
yeah.
about in book one, what would you say is the inciting incident for your main character? What's the thing that kicks her, that happens to her, that kicks her into that plot line and sends her on this adventure?
Okay, well, it starts right out in chapter one. She's running away because her dad arranged a marriage for her. And unlike her nine older siblings, who are all sisters, she kind of had the luxury of being more like the tomboy because she got to get training in martial arts and other things. And she felt like she had a little more leeway or something was going to differ. And she was also getting older. So like, medieval times, most of the girls were married off like when they were 16, 17.
Hmm.
And, she's 19 now and had,
Her
and
time is
she,
coming.
yeah, she didn't expect, she's like, well, maybe I won't have to worry about that. It's like, just like dad having been left to marry me off to anyway, for
And what
his
is it that she
expansion.
wants in life? What is it that she actually wants?
She actually wants to be free to be herself, but she's still trying to figure out who that is.
Okay.
So,
The coming of age. Fabulous. And so if
yeah.
people have if they've read other books, are there any other books that you would say are kind of similar, or if they've been people have read it, would they enjoy, what kind of readers would enjoy your books?
Um, well, when I was looking to see what came up similar and diving into what Amazon pulls up as similar, there is like A.K. Howard's work with like his Arthurian series. So that kind of has the feel of the whole like um medieval kingdom and some of the magic side. Then to get more of the because of the way the cathedral is, it's like a whole training thing too. So like Brian John Skiller's like Templar fiction, even
Lovely.
though that's historical fiction, it kind of will have the same feel, but mine will be like in the fantasy world version. Um, and
Fabulous.
then
People have read
uh,
those, then it's a good chance they're going to
yeah,
like
now
the way of your books. Fabulous. So if people are interested in that, that sounds good to them. Then where is the best place for them to go and find out about your books?
all my books are available on Amazon only at the moment. You can do Kindle Unlimited ebook or a print book. Um, and
And have you got a website?
yes, I have a website that's my name, altheadamgaard.com.
Lovely.
um, that I that I actually just made. Some people, my books in the back will still send you to books.altheadamgaard.com, which is like a one-page landing page that I put up on Story Origin just to link everything until the day I actually got a web page made.
That's fine
So
though, but everybody will be able to
yeah,
find the information they need on
yes,
your website and they'll be sent through to the right link.
yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, so like
Lovely.
AltheaDamgaard.com is definitely the main hub now.
Place to go. Well, I'll be sure to link to that in the show notes. Absolutely. Well, Althea, it's been so lovely talking to you and finding out about the world that you're creating in your trilogy and what you shared with us about working with beta readers, because that's an important part of every writer's step and journey along the way to publication. So thank you so, so much for being with me today.
And thanks for having me. I've had fun. Hopefully I didn't ramble too much in my process of answering.